Hi, friends. So I broke my arm a bit over a week ago. And I'm just waiting for an operation. Actually, I have to have an operation in the last 3 days. They've said, yes, it's going to be today. We've got you on an emergency list. And then they say, oh no, that we've had some car crash emergency, so we have to bump you to another day. So it's like the last 2 or 3 days now. So hopefully in the next couple of days I'll have an operation. And I won't have to have a cast on for more than a couple of weeks, so that will be nice. But I'll have some plates and screws in my wrist. Who knew that gardening could be so perilous? Anyway, so I am going to do a passing of the recent debate. Usually I sort of watching some of the most recent debates. I've either missed them or I've just thought it's just too hard yakka, if you know what I mean. It's too awful, basically, to sort of wade through. Not that today's ABC debate, it's February, what date is it today? February 8th, I think, today. Anyway, so not that today wasn't hard to watch. I didn't catch all of it, but anyway, I want to pass some of the different things that different ones have said, and unfortunately, I have to do it via sort of a screen recorder. So I hope you don't mind that some of my videos are done through a screen recorder rather than face to face like this. Sometimes I just have to do that. Technology limits me doing other things these days at the moment anyway. So anyway, I have a bunch of little felines around me at the moment visiting me. So if the tripod starts wriggling, that's what's happening. So I'm just going to start off with something that the obvious favorite now for the mainstream media is Pete Buttigieg. I think Joe Biden is kind of finished unless they try and resuscitate a corpse, basically, because it's not looking good for Joe Biden. And of course the whole thing is like theatrics and a facade, since democracy is all but dead in the United States, and that includes these different caucuses. You know, if you saw the recent Iowa caucus, which was just diabolical, really, how they were trying to screw Bernie Sanders out of winning the caucus. And it turned out that the backers for one of the billionaire backers for Pete Buttigieg, his name is Seth Klarman, who's also a big pro-Israel supporter of illegal Israeli settlements, and he was a big supporter of regime change in Syria. So he's right on board with the establishment imperialism. He's one of the many billionaire backers of Pete Buttigieg, and Seth Klarman was one of the people behind the Iowa caucus app that caused so much problems. It's a company called Shadow Inc., and I think the parent company of that is called Acronym. Look them up. I did a video just recently where I read out an article by the Grey Zone. The person who wrote the article is none other than the very wonderful Max Blumenthal, who's an incredible journalist. So please check out that video from a couple of days ago. I've done 2 videos on it, one about Acronym. Acronym is the involvement of, what's his name? The same guy, basically, the CEO of LinkedIn. He's actually also behind that Iowa caucus app. So anyway, look those 2 articles up, those 2 videos where I read out the articles, and it's very important that we know who is behind these puppets of empire, and because usually the puppets will do the bidding of those billionaire backers. It's not like they're out of the goodness of their heart. These billionaires are giving them money because they want everything to go well for everybody, for the people of the United States and elsewhere.
Unlike some of the folks up here, I don't have 40 billionaires, Pete, contributing to my campaign. Coming from the pharmaceutical industry, coming from Wall Street and all the big money interests. What we do have is we have now over 6 million contributions from 1.5 million people, averaging $18.50 a contribution. That is unprecedented in the history of American politics. If we want to change America, you're not going to do it by electing candidates who are going out to rich people's homes begging for money. The way we're going to do it is build a mass movement of working people who are prepared to stand up, not take money from these billionaires, not take money from Wall Street, but stand up to the drug companies in Wall Street. And if you want to be part of that political revolution, BernieSanders.com.
They are paying to play. They're putting in money so that if these people manage to get to the President of the United States, the office of the President of the United States, well, hopefully they will sort of fulfill that requirement of the billionaire backer and do their bidding. So if Seth Klarman is one of the backers of Pete the Cheat, I think we could call him, because he knew that there was some dirty dealings with this Iowa caucus app. If Mayor Pete is being backed by Seth Klarman, that probably means that Seth Klarman will definitely be doing the bidding of AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, and he'll be on board with whatever. If the Israeli lobby and powerful people like Seth Klarman want him to sort of go along with invading Iran, well, Mayor Pete will be right on board with that. Pete Buttigieg has been connected to the CIA. There's also another video I did where I read out an article about that. He is absolutely the national security state's choice, I think, for the Democratic Party's nominee. So that's what we have here now. So Pete Buttigieg is being elevated by the mainstream media. They obviously have been given their talking points by the national security state. They've been told, okay, so Biden's not in the picture anymore, so go for this guy. Would Pete Buttigieg be able to beat Donald Trump? Well, firstly, I don't think the United States is friendly enough to LGBT people to be voting for a gay president. I'm sorry to say that, but that's probably how it is. Secondly, Donald Trump lies like a rug, and Pete Buttigieg also lies. I mean, you'd swear he was the best friend to black people, when actually I think incarceration rates went up in his hometown when he was mayor, when he became when he became mayor of that town. So Pete Buttigieg is a liar too, but Donald Trump is sort of a supreme liar, and he'll say whatever is expedient at the time, which most of them do, of course, but I can't see anybody but Bernie Sanders beating Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying I think Bernie Sanders is going to be great as a president, because there's a few problems, and I'm sorry if you think he's just fantastic. He's very, very good on domestic policy, but he's not good on he's really not that great on foreign policy. He's not. And I haven't seen the debate today, but from some comments that I've heard, he was saying some negative things about DPRK and Iran, I think. That's not helpful, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say for sure, but I just saw a couple of comments about that, about people saying that they couldn't truly fully support Bernie Sanders because of the sort of things he says sometimes about other countries. I don't know why people go back and forth. You're not going to please anybody. They don't want somebody who's remotely progressive. The Democrats don't want, the DNC doesn't want anybody remotely progressive as a nominee, as the presidential nominee. Unless you're fully on board with what the national security state wants, whether you're fully on board with corporations and what they want, they don't want you. They don't want you. So I don't know why he feels he needs to throw in these sort of CIA, national security state talking points about countries that have not submitted to the U.S. empire. But if he did today, then I don't know why he does it. Anyway, but that's, I don't know. So anyway, what was my point of this? Oh yes, the point of this particular video is I'm just going to show you a short clip of ABC asking Pete Buttigieg. So sometimes I have trouble saying his name. Is it Buttigieg or is it Buttigieg? I'm not sure. So the ABC. This is an amazing question. And I always have problems with this left and right thing. Okay, because why should left be something that is actually for people, for the people and pro-people, right? And pro-environment, etc. Why is that seen as left? Why isn't that seen as just how it should be? So we've got this right thing, which is sort of anti-people, anti-things that are going to benefit the people and for corporations and all, and for war and everything. And then we've got this so-called left, which is, and then they call it the extreme left. What on earth is that, the extreme left? Is that because most people want free healthcare, which is a right. Healthcare is a right. Even Obama admitted that one day, Obama, who had the opportunity to have Medicare for all and passed on it. Why is that sort of thing called extreme left when it actually should be all these governments are supposed to be working for the people? I mean, let's be real about this. Government is supposed to be working for you and me, the people. And somewhere the narrative is changed where there's a left and a right. I mean, of course, government was probably never ever, it was always run by oligarchs and stuff, so it's never ever really been meant for you and I. It's been meant to line the pockets of oligarchs. But the idea is that government is for the benefit of the people. So where did this left and right crap come into it? Shouldn't both parties, any party, should be, or it always should be the focus that, they make out, right? So they know what they're supposed to be doing, because you only have to look at these debates and you see they're always pretending as if they care about the public, about you and me, or they care about black people. You'd think the Democratic Party was the most wonderful, the U.S. Democratic Party was the most wonderful party. They're all going on about it like today, as if people, the people, you and I, and brown and black people, they carry on about how important black people are. Please. It's an insult to black people to have these people who can't even agree on having free healthcare, Medicare for all, something that other Western countries like Australia, my country, have. It's not a big deal. And they can afford it. They have a sovereign economy. But they want to line the pockets. They get lobbyist money from Big Pharma and from the health industry and all of that. So no, they don't want to give Americans free healthcare, what they deserve. They don't want to give them that, even though most of the country wants that. And most of the, a lot of Democrats, people who say they're Democrats, want it. But the actual gatekeepers and corporate Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi and Elizabeth Warren, who pretends like she's going to give you free health care eventually, and all of that. People like that who lie, like Elizabeth Warren lies like a rug. She's been lying all the way through about her background and all of that. She's not going to give you free health care. She's not. Never. And if they thought she really was, she wouldn't get anywhere near the office of the President of the United States. That's why the Democrats are so desperate to screw over Bernie Sanders, because he actually will do what he actually will, as far as domestic policy goes. He will do what he says he's going to do. He has a track history, 30 years or so, of that being true to his, he says the same things over the decades. So he would do what he could to give people free health care. Whether he would actually be successful in doing that, because of how effed up everything is over there, that's the problem, because he's likely to do that. They don't want him anywhere near. They don't want anyone who's progressive anywhere near the office of the President of the United States. They don't. So anyway, Pete Buttigieg is you'd swear he's a great friend of black people, the way he carries on, the way he was carrying on in some of what I saw today in this ABC debate, and he can taste victory. And I think if between the mainstream media and these billionaire backers with their cheating apps and any other sort of by hook or by crook, the Democratic Party is going to steal the nomination away from Bernie Sanders, even though it's obvious he's the most popular candidate. And as I was saying to somebody, Robbie Martin, the other day on his live stream, even if he gets through all these 50 states and they haven't screwed him out of it during that time, the DNC is likely to just change the rules at the last minute. Watch and see what they do. And the reason I say that is because they've admitted in a court case when they were being sued over things like this, they actually said, "Look, we're a private organization, and we can change the rules." Well, but people still give them money, and in the end, if Bernie Sanders gets screwed out of the nomination, which I see is going to happen, then they'll just take all that money from Bernie Sanders that he's raised during his campaign. I think that's what'll happen, and they'll keep it. He's just like a little money maker for them. And Bernie Sanders has said that he would get behind whomever they pick as the nominee. He said that. This is for 2020. You know, he didn't challenge them in 2016, and I don't think he's going to do that in 2020. So anyway, I mean, it'll be a miracle if he makes it through these these 50 states and these these sort of voting things they have. You know, sorry, I'm not all up to date on the whole link. You know what procedures they go through, but if that Iowa caucus is any evidence of the future of what the rest of the time is going to be before the final convention primary, etc., then it's not looking good, because they did whatever they could, including that ridiculous coin toss. Did you see that? The guy coin tossed up in the air. I think that I know if they did it like 4 times or something. Well, at least one of them I saw. He looks like he'd never coin tossed in his life. This is for delegates, and it always favoured Buttigieg. He threw the coin up and he's fiddling with it and looking at it and fiddling with it, and then sort of said, "Oh, Buttigieg." I mean, at the very least, like if, as somebody said, if that was a sports event, there'd be a riot, you know? He should have at least threw it up in the air and let it land on a table and then pick whatever the thing was on the table. But this is for the president, you know, this is for a president of the United States, and they're doing coin tosses or rounding things off to the next decimal? What kind of a dodgy brothers sort of a operation have they got going there? Seriously, if we did this in Australia, even that coin toss, there'd be you would never hear the end of it. The sort of things that go on in the United States in their electoral process are so not transparent. You even just one of these things, you'd never hear the end of it. And I hope it's always like that. We do not tolerate election meddling here. And we have paper ballots, and we have preferential voting, or what you would call ranked choice voting. You know, you would never hear the end of it. And it's just non-stop, the corruption and the cheating, non-stop in the United States elections. Whether they're just state elections or whether they're this sort of election. And I'm absolutely sure that there's general election, presidential elections, the general one. There's absolutely corruption and fiddling going on there. For sure. So even if Bernie Sanders became the nominee for the Democrats, and this is, I don't know if he'd actually, the elections are dodgy. The presidential elections, the whole thing is a scam. So anyway, the Democratic Party has said, the DNC has said, we can pick, we can sit in the back room with cigars, literally that's what they said, and pick who we want to win the primary. But they're doing it by hook or by crook, however they can. And the mainstream media is going along with them, because the mainstream media are just big corporations, right? And they don't want anybody that's remotely progressive. They have weapons. They don't want anybody remotely progressive as a candidate, as the president. And they're happily take their talking points from the national security state. They don't want anybody remotely progressive, and they get advertising money from weapons industries. Literally, you see Lockheed Martin and different weapons manufacturers having ads on these news shows. They're all on board with it together. Weapons industry, the whole shebang. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in endless war. and they will be in many ways like the guy, I forget his name, who was sued, who was sacked. Was it CBS? He said, Donald Trump. He said he may be bad for the country, but he's good for business. That's what he said. Well, it's true, and I'm sure that pretty much all the mainstream media would be more than happy if Donald Trump is re-elected again, because he is good for business. People keep watching him. They keep tuning in to his shenanigans, and he's more than happy to provide that. And he got $1 billion worth of free exposure in the 2016 election. So they don't want anybody. They'd love to have Donald Trump back as president. So they'll be more than happy to to see a weak candidate up against Donald Trump. More than happy. So I'll just show you this little clip. And Pete Buttigieg, he's as somebody said, he's very eloquent in some ways, like Obama, and yet he sort of says nothing. There's a lot of eloquent stuff coming out of his mouth, but he's actually not saying much. So he's a great obfuscator in a way. And when this ABC journalist, stenographer journalist, said, so the people are worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left, I think you've got to be kidding me. You think that that having Medicare for all, which is something that most people in the United States want, that makes it too far to the left, really extreme left? Either, if they believe that, then they're so out of touch. But I know they don't believe that. They know how they could win. The Democratic Party know how they could win. All they have to do is say, we're giving you Medicare for all, we're eliminating student debt, all the things that, just even a few of the things that Bernie Sanders is talking about. They would win like that. Watch how they screw Bernie Sanders over. See, they know they could win with Bernie Sanders, but they would rather lose to Donald Trump than have a progressive anywhere near the President of the United States, that office. They really would rather lose to Trump. And if Trump gets in again, they're all an aberration. Trump isn't an aberration. He's just empire with the mask taken off. If Donald Trump gets in, he's going to see that as a mandate to escalate all the awful things. Kind of fascistic, it'll turn into a sort of a fascist sort of state, basically, an authoritarian or fascist state. And that's the way it's heading. And he will probably start rounding up journalists. He'll do what they're going to do to Julian Assange. Anybody who uncovers any, war is a crime, but specific crimes or whatever, or starts threatening the national security state, military-industrial complex with exposing them for anything, or anything that's endangering any corporations, his buddies. He's probably going to do what he's going to do to Julian Assange. And that's why that's going to make the media even less able to, not that they have the mainstream media has no intentions of challenging anything, but it certainly makes sure that anybody who thinks about it knows that it's going to be dire for them. And there's all sorts of other things he's going to do. He's installed 187 judges that are all right-wing. I don't know if they're lifetime appointments. It's going to be dire. There's probably going to be, at some point, some sort of martial law for different things. He's going to see that as a mandate. And did you see? I just want to point something out before I go. Did you see what he posted? He's posted this at least once before. I'll see if I can play it. It's just so... You'd expect this on The Onion, right? The Onion, the satirical sort of magazine, sort of online thing. Well, he posted this thing where I'll show you it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So anyway, you've seen it. I mean, that's scary, because I really think he actually believes that. He'd actually like to have, basically, be like an emperor, He'd like to be able to have 3 or 4 terms, or maybe more. And I don't think that's sort of too speculative of me to say that. I really think that he would like to have it just ongoing. And if he can change the laws to do that, he will. And they can do that. I mean, there's even the Koch brothers are trying to change the Constitution, rewrite parts of the Constitution. They're trying to get states together. Well, there's only one Koch brother left. The other one died, but that's what they were doing before the last Koch brother died. The other Koch brother died. That's what they were doing, trying to get some states together to change the Constitution. Well, I don't think anything is past anybody now. I think everything is everything that one can imagine happening in that country now that could happen, because it's just like with the DNC. This is how fast and loose everybody is now. They don't follow any international laws. They just assassinate important people from, like, for example, Soleimani from Iran. That's completely against international law. Assassinate, like these invasions of countries that the U.S. empire is doing, is against that, just invading countries. There's no provocation. Nobody is trying to attack them. There's all these things, all these different things. What's going on in Israel that's backed by the U.S. of illegal settlements and just snipering children and medics and paraplegics, etc., at the fence of the open-air prison that is Gaza. All that kind of thing that the U.S. is backing and giving $10.5 million of military aid a day to Israel, which, by the way, Pete Buttigieg would be right on board with, or any of those candidates on stage. I don't think Bernie Sanders would be on board with it, but the rest of them, sure. There's a very, very close tie with Israel. Israel does their proxy wars in the Middle East, and they give a lot of money to candidates and free, tours of Israel when people get into Congress and stuff. There's all sorts of things. The Israel lobby is very powerful. You saw how they helped bring down Jeremy Corbyn, calling him anti-Semitic because he supported Palestinian rights. He was against apartheid. And they even gloated on video in public how they managed to bring Jeremy Corbyn down with this anti-Semitic smear. If you're against apartheid, if you're against oppressing Palestinians, apparently then you're labeled as anti-Semitic. And that's something that they're going to bring out for Bernie Sanders in the next 8 months or whatever, 9 months. They're going to start calling him anti-Semitic because he actually said in one debate that the US needs to be pro-Palestinian. That will be one thing they'll do to him. And the other thing is, of course, which Bernie Sanders has also participated in, which is that Russian asset, that people are Russian assets, or that Russia has interfered with the election, all that kind of stuff. He's actually participated in promoting that Russiagate stuff. Well, that's coming back to bite him. They've already started implying or calling him some sort of a Russian asset, like they did with Tulsi Gabbard, calling basically Hillary Clinton, calling Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset. And Tulsi Gabbard is suing her for $50 million. Good luck to her with that. So anyway, I know I'm rambling all over the place. I'm sorry, I just tend to do that. So anyway, Pete Buttigieg was just about to explains, why he thinks that the Democratic Party has gone too far to the left. And I question this whole left-right BS. I think we really need to start challenging that whole left-right nonsense, what that actually means.
Finally, Mayor Pete, there are some in the party that are raising concerns that the party is moving way too far to the left. It sounds like you're raising that same concern. What do you want to tell people in the party who maybe are with Senator Sanders or with other candidates who aren't on your side? What's your argument going to be to bring them into your coalition?
Well, here's my message to progressives in the party. I would be the most progressive presidential nominee we've put forward in a generation. It's just that I've also found a way to put forward these issues that we can bring more and more people on board with. We shouldn't measure the boldness of an idea by how many people it turns off and how much controversy it can generate. We should measure it by how many people we can bring in to do something big that'll make a difference in our actual lives. I would be a president who can deliver that change, not just say the right things, but make it happen.
Any predictions for Tuesday?
Well, I predict we're going to have a great night.
All right. Well, smart answer. All right, Mayor Pete, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
And why it's kind of like normalizes things that are anti-people, that are against actually doing things for people, when people are supposed to be the focus of helping, of benefiting people. That's what governments are supposed to be doing. They pretend that they're doing that. They pretend they're doing that in these debates. They're always talking about how they know what they're supposed to be doing, right? Because you hear it in the debates. But it's never like that in reality. The only time they only talk about a good game just before an election, and then after that, then you're on your own. The public's on their own. They just help their corporate mates, throw a few crumbs to the plebs, and it's just going to get worse and worse. There's less and less crumbs even, and people are killing themselves. That's another thing, they talk about the opioid crisis. I think, something that's never addressed, and this is a very common thing, we never look at the causes of the real causes of things, like the causes of why people are so sick, which is often diet. And, I'm vegan. Veganism is an ethical position, but the ancillary benefits of veganism is health. Health is something that is a benefit of becoming vegan. And a great improvement in health. And another thing that is a cause, I think, of this opioid crisis is the crushing poverty and debt and neoliberalism and insecurity and the climate crisis, which governments are going the other way and not doing anything about, really. And people can see imminent human extinction and taking most other species with us. All those different factors can make a lot of people, and also the inaction of governments and basically abandoning the public and being neoliberal, neoconservative, corporate-loving, corporate-serving politicians. When people see that over and over again, it becomes a kind of a learned helplessness. Learned helplessness where you think that no matter what you do, it's never going to make any difference. And they like you feeling like that. They want you to just feel hopeless and just abandon everything and don't try and challenge anything. They want you to feel like that. They want you to give up. And when you give up, well, great. They think that's great. And a lot of people have given up in the United States. Most of the country do not even vote. I'm not surprised they don't, because look at the corruption in this electoral process. I mean, it's in plain sight now. They don't even care. It's in plain sight. This Iowa caucus thing, the cheating is in plain sight. A party cheating its own best candidate, and I'm not saying I'm endorsing Bernie Sanders for those reasons I mentioned earlier and for the other reasons I've mentioned in other videos, but he's the best candidate for domestic policy. And, I may wind back the wars, I don't know. But if he's still for droning, which I think he is, then, that's really bad. And if he's still talking up nonsense, giving out CIA, national security state talking points about Iran and DPRK and places like that, then that is very bad, very, very bad. But he's the best candidate that they have, and look what they're trying to do to him, because they don't want anything for the people. Really, that's the bottom line. So that's the shambles they have in the U.S. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as somebody said, as Robbie Martin said, this could be the last election. It could be the last real/fake election the U.S. has, if Donald Trump gets in particular. So anyway, when people feel helpless, they just give up. And they start killing themselves with opioids or eating badly. That's another form like a slow suicide. Just stuffing your face with cholesterol-ridden products of violence, animal products, and slowly killing yourself. Or, self-medicating. All of that is all indications that that what is happening in our society is there's a sort of a malaise that people want out. They'd rather die of an accidental overdose or an intentional one than have to live in a society that is dysfunctional and where a government is basically your enemy. And it's such a struggle they can't deal with it anymore. That's what a lot of this opioid crisis is about, apart from the fact that the Sackler family, of course, knew that those particular drugs were addictive, and they hid that from, they hid that basically, and now they're being sued, I think, the Sackler family. But they've made a fortune, and at the cost of many, like there's, 80 people or 100 people a day of dying of overdoses in the United States from that opioid crisis. Powerful opioids that are way more powerful than morphine. So, but that opioid crisis is just, the pharmaceutical companies are just making money off people's suffering and death. But that's a sort of a symptom. The people dying of suicide, that's a symptom of a dysfunctional society. That's why we have young people as young as 9 years old. Indigenous people young people are the most are misrepresented, and the numbers are high. But I think it's 1 in 3 child deaths in Australia are due to suicide. That's what is either 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. What does that say about Australia? What does that say about our policies about Indigenous people? So that's shameful. Anyway, that's something that none of these candidates on stage ever talk about. Well, I suppose Bernie Sanders talks about what a shambles everything is. I suppose that is admitting that how dysfunctional everything is and how it's all geared for the 1%, the billionaires, etc. I mean, three people own more wealth than more than half of the people in the United States. In the United States, so he's actually admitting that things are far gone, right? But I mean, these other people, when they talk about the opioid crisis, they don't talk about why would people be turning to these powerful drugs to sort of, to opt out of what's going on, to opt out of their extreme poverty, of the abusive sort of policies that are happening in the United States. This is happening worldwide. How governments are basically turning on people and seeing them as useless eaters, as the Nazis used to call people who were disabled or whatever in the time of the Third Reich. Useless eaters. We're all becoming useless eaters to governments. You only have to look at how they treat us in their policies. So I've always looked at, there's this cartoon of a world, and it has somebody sitting at the top at a computer, and then it has somebody lighting a fuse at the bottom, and basically I think it says something to the effect of, the idea of this cartoon is that that people think that what's happening in other parts of the world isn't relevant to them. When actually everything that happens, every persecution, every oppression of anyone, anywhere on the planet, and that includes non-human animals. And when we're not vegan, we're basically participating in that oppression. So what we're doing to non-human animals eventually comes around to us. So that's why we need to be vegan. It's a matter of justice, right? And non-violence. But whatever happens to anybody anywhere on the planet, and we don't care about it, and we don't see it as relevant to us, it's like over there. It doesn't concern us. We are so wrong, because everything is interconnected. Everything on this planet is interconnected. even the ground we walk on, was once animals, and we're animals too. People, plants, the soil we grow things in was once people and plants. Everything, the air we breathe, it all circulates around, the pollution we put in to the planet. Everything is connected. And so I could go on about the connections there, but everything is connected. And so to pretend like what's happening to Palestinians doesn't concern us, and because it's not a popular issue, we can just ignore it. Because people, it's not on people's radar. So we can pretend it's, and what power do Palestinians have? They don't have any power. They're not, so we can just ignore them. That is a huge mistake. It's also morally bankrupt to think that way. For us to think that way, that they don't matter. And it does matter, because what happens to them will eventually come round to us. You may not think that's possible, but it absolutely is, and it's happening right now. And if white people think that, oh, I'm white, and the things that are happening to black people in the United States or to Palestinians or whatever, any of that, anyone who thinks that they're exempt because they're white, please, that's a delusion. Eventually, we'll all become useless eaters. Useless eaters. Anyway, that's I'm kind of rambling, but the whole left-right thing, that was what I was starting off talking about. That really bothers me, this whole left and right bullshit. We've got to stop talking like that, really. We really do. And left has become a bit of a joke too. I mean, you cannot be left and not care about war and not care about imperialism. I don't even, and that doesn't even get into the thing about people on the left not being vegan. There are so many moral imperatives. The moral imperative of being vegan is so in our faces now. Not just because of the violence and the fact that they're sentient beings. We don't have the right to use them as property. Sentience is all that matters. But it's also causing a great contributor to world hunger. It's a major contributor. Animal agriculture is a major contributor to the climate crisis. Our fishing in the oceans is basically destroying the oceans. And that's also a major contributor to the climate crisis, as well as its massive violence. There are so many reasons I could give you a list as long as my arm about why we should be vegan. So people on the left need to start to really get a grip on that and really understand why it's a moral imperative that anybody who calls themselves left, and I'm using this term now, left, needs to be vegan. It's just like a basic thing now. It's a first step to a non-violent life. It's about justice. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about. Was I wanted to talk about the left and the right thing, and how Pete Buttigieg basically is obfuscating, and he thinks that the party is going too far to the left. What does that tell you? That tells you you're not going to get any Medicare for all from him. That's one thing. And he's absolutely going to continue on the endless wars for sure. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, so thanks for watching. I will do some discussion about the various sections of the Democratic debate today on ABC. And when they stop yapping and live, and I won't be doing it like this, unfortunately, but I will be doing it sort of as a screen recording and stopping it and having chats about different things. Okay, so thanks for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notifications bell, otherwise you won't receive notifications when I drop a video. Click the like button if you like the comments and content, and I always enjoy your comments. So thanks very much for watching. Till next time. Bye for now.